One day, Yukiya remembers that when they were in the 6th grade, Miku and he started a game called the I Love You game. They had to say I love you, and the one who got flustered or whose heart started to race would lose the game. He thought the game was stupid back then, and he still does. 4 years have passed, and they still stubbornly play the game. So far, neither of them has won, much to the amusement of the people around them. During one of their hangouts at a cafe, they argue, accusing each other of being shy. Miku complains that at the rate they are going, the game will never end. She teases him, saying that he looked really good earlier when he confessed. He turns red, which Miku notices, and she immediately teases him about it. However, he argues that only Miku can tell and that other people would not notice, so it will not count. As they bicker, Hanako, a waitress at the cafe, notices that their game seems to have changed a little over the years. Masaru, the owner, says they changed the rules, so they are now allowed to do anything rather than simply say I love you. Hanako gets excited over this new change. She and Masaru are both aware that Miku and Yukiya are actually in love with each other, so they eagerly wait for the day their relationship develops into something more. Miku remembers the time and stands to leave, but before she does, she tells Yukiya that she hopes they will be classmates again tomorrow during the entrance ceremony. He tries to hide his feelings by pretending not to really care whether they end up in the same class. When Miku walks to the door, she remembers to thank Masaru for the meal. Once she's gone, Yukiya finally lets his frustration show. He is irritated with Miku constantly acting like a brat, only to suddenly turn sweet and cute. He finds her very charming and is driving him insane. As the staff assumes that he will be the loser, Yukiya reevaluates when his feelings started to change. When their game first started, Miku never looked cute to him. He actually liked the game back then because it was his chance to finally win a game against Miku. However, one day when they were in middle school, Miku whispered that she loved him, and he suddenly felt his heart skip a beat. Miku noticed his reaction and teased him about it. Even Yukiya was shocked. It was the first time Miku's voice had sounded extra sweet to him. He finally realized that Miku was growing into a woman right in front of him, and that knowledge excited him for some reason. During one of their walks home, Miku handed him a drink from something she had been sipping. He blushed slightly since it would mean an indirect kiss, so he tried to hide his reaction by biting on the straw and quickly finishing the drink. He found himself wondering how things would change if they had never played the game. He knew he could lose Miku to someone else someday, and the game was what he believed had kept them tied at the hip for this long. Yukiya is still grumbling about his feelings for Miku, much to the annoyance and amusement of the cafe staff. He knows that if Miku ever found out about his true feelings for her, she would definitely rub it in his face. He does not think he could live through that level of embarrassment, so he swears that he will do whatever it takes to win their game. He even made it a point to look better in order to increase his chances of making her heart flutter. Hanako hands him some water, commenting that his hair looks a lot better since she recommended the new hair salon, which Yukiya admits really helped him. He wonders why it still is not charming Miku, so Hanako bluntly tells him that he is still childish and that something like changing a hairstyle will do very little to make a girl fall for him. The next day arrives and Yukiya finally finishes preparing himself for school. Earlier that morning, he had been a mess and needed his sister Wakana to help him fix his hair. All he has to do now is review some shoujo manga lines that he knows Miku would love to hear from him. Though he admits that a lot of what he reads seems too girly for him, he reminds himself that he could lose Miku someday. Because of that, he feels that he has no choice but to win. He wonders if there is a possibility that Miku might actually like him back. He considers confessing to her seriously, but since he is not sure of her feelings, he feels stuck. The best he can do right now is become the perfect person for her so that she will have no choice but to admit defeat. He believes that once he wins the game, that will be the moment when he can finally confess his feelings to her for real. He carefully reviews his plan for the day, which involves sweeping her off her feet with cool lines when he picks her up. He thinks the plan is perfect and rushes downstairs so he can execute it, but he immediately pales when he sees her standing in front of his gate. He feels like he is about to faint but manages to steady himself. Miku looks just like an angel to him, and he has a hard time keeping his blush under control. The power of seeing her in a high school uniform proves to be almost lethal to him, and to make things even worse, she gives him a little twirl to tease him. Miku notices that Yukiya seems to be having a hard time controlling his reaction. This makes her think that all of her careful preparation that morning might actually work and that she might finally win the game. She thinks back to why she takes the game so seriously. The truth is that she has been in love with him since their childhood, and she wants him to recognize her as a woman. She's been noticing that she has been getting stronger reactions from him lately, but Yukiya still has not admitted that his heart skipped a beat. It would not be satisfying if she were the one to declare victory. It has to be Yukiya who finally admits that he finds her cute. Regardless, she is determined to win and she intends to always give the game her all. She momentarily gets distracted when she admits to herself that Yukiya looks good in his high school uniform. She even notices that he styled his hair today. Though she liked him before, she finds her heart racing faster recently because of how much he's been growing. She keeps her expression straight because, in preparation, she had imagined him wearing the uniform several times until she felt confident enough to face him. So when Yukiya finally looks directly at her, she manages to confidently tease him. Yukiya scowls at her, trying to calm himself down so that she will not gain the upper hand. He decides to fake confidence and suddenly corners her against the wall, pretending to tease her about the fact that she was clearly checking him out. Both of them are too preoccupied to calm their racing hearts to notice that they are both furiously blushing in their current position. Miku even notices that he unbuttoned the top 2 buttons of his uniform. She thinks he is planning to win today, but upon studying his expression more closely, she realizes that he is clearly nervous. This realization makes her feel relieved because she knows she can fake confidence more easily than he can. She takes the opportunity to tease him by suddenly fixing his tie. The action comes as such a surprise to him that he has a hard time recovering. Miku decides to tease him about his sudden stiffness, and Yukiya struggles to act like the action did not shock him. He tries to claim that Miku touching him does not affect him in the slightest, and to prove his point, he grabs her hand. However, the sudden contact shocks both of them. Yukiya quickly tries to cover up his reaction by stating that he was only startled because she screamed, and Miku fires back, saying it is his fault for suddenly holding her hand. Yukiya takes a moment to study her carefully. She looks shy for a change, and this is the first time she has ever looked flustered in front of him. But Miku quickly recovers and decides to tease him again for pulling away too soon. She claims that Yukiya is so innocent that he cannot even handle a simple touch from her. Yukiya retaliates by commenting that there is not even anything womanly about her. He says she still looks like a kid and hardly seems like someone in high school. This comment clearly upsets her. However, after a brief moment, she suddenly gets an idea. To make herself look more like a high school girl, she decides to lift her skirt slightly higher so that she will appear more mature. Yukiya immediately panics when he notices more of her legs showing, and he feels like Miku is no longer playing the game fairly. Miku proudly claims that with her skirt raised higher, Yukiya is now forced to look at her more closely, and she is confident that his tough guy act will eventually break. However, after calming himself down, Yukiya actually voices his concern. He firmly advises Miku to fix her skirt length because other guys might look at her in a strange way. Miku argues that he only thinks that because of the way he looks at her, but regardless of her teasing, she still ends up adjusting her skirt back to a proper length. She then cheekily asks if his concern means that she wins because he would not have been worried if he did not feel his heart flutter at seeing her skirt length. Yukiya quickly scolds her and insists that he does not feel anything like that, but he is certain that other guys will definitely keep their eyes on her. She becomes annoyed and argues that she clearly saw his face turn red, which leads to another heated argument between them. Their argument suddenly stops when Wakana appears behind them and points out that they will be late if they do not start heading to school immediately. Realizing that Wakana is right, both of them begin running towards school at full speed. Wakana sighs as she watches them run off, noting that they are still exactly the same even now that they are in high school. Since they ran the entire way, they soon find themselves on the Sakura-filled hill that leads up to their high school. They still are not sure if they will make it in time, and Yukiya decides to blame Miku's stubbornness for their possible tardiness. Miku quickly argues back that he is the one taking the game too seriously. To prove her point, she brings up the extra effort he put in earlier, including the dramatic Kabadan and his attempt to look cool. She confidently claims that she can tell he was clearly uncomfortable the whole time and that the only reason they are fighting now is that he secretly knows that he has already lost the game. Yukiya is about to argue back, but then he suddenly decides against it. Instead, he slows down until he comes to a complete stop, allowing Miku to jog a few steps ahead of him. She eventually notices that he is no longer beside her and turns around in confusion. She looks at him curiously, and the moment she sees how serious his expression is, she suddenly blushes. Yukiya then moves forward and calmly walks past her, casually admitting that he only wanted to see how upset she would become. They begin arguing again almost immediately, but this time their tone is much lighter, as if they have narrowly avoided a much bigger fight. Together, they continue running the rest of the way towards school. When they finally arrive, they quickly check the class assignment board. Both of them brighten visibly upon realizing that they have been placed in the same class for the new school year. However, they both pretend not to really care despite their obvious happiness. At the same time, they silently promise themselves that this will be the year when they finally win and put an end to their I love you game. Both of them quietly giggle to themselves as they begin fantasizing about different scenarios where the other person finally falls for them, completely unaware that they both have feelings for each other. In the past, Miku and her mother had just moved to a new neighborhood. Because of her work, Miku's mother had to drop her off at a neighbor's house, Yukiya's family home. Despite meeting her for the first time, Yukiya welcomed her into his house. When her mother finally left, Miku began to cry because of all the changes. Yukiya made her a simple meal to help her feel better, and his thoughtfulness made her smile. In the present, while making egg rolls, Miku remembers that day and smiles. At their new high school, people have already found friends and are chatting happily among themselves. Yukiya, on the other hand, feels as if he is a loner. Miku had told him that everyone had already made friends using an app before the first day of class. Miku approaches him and immediately teases him about his lonely state because he refuses to create an Instagram account. Despite his situation, Yukiya still refuses to open one. He also corrects Miku, saying he simply prefers staying indoors. Miku says she's impressed that he is somehow proud of that. She then suggests that they start referring to each other by their last names at school since she does not want strange rumors about them spreading. Yukiya is taken aback by the request and even feels a little sad when she tests it by calling him by his last name. Miku suddenly chuckles and reassures him that she will continue calling him Yukiya as usual. The moment she calls him by his name again, he has a hard time controlling the blush on his face. Noticing it, Miku immediately teases him, but Yukiya stubbornly refuses to admit that his heart fluttered. Instead, he challenges her to say his name again, but this time she had to look directly into his eyes while saying it. Miku suddenly feels shy and her eyes keep shifting nervously as she tries to say his name. Seeing that she became nervous while saying it, Yukiya does not hesitate to rub it in. She trembles out of frustration and reminds him that she's only being cautious because other people might get the wrong idea. However, she suddenly realizes that if people did assume something about their relationship, it would not be entirely wrong. Yukiya becomes confused by her statement. They are not dating, but the way Miku sounds as if she wants to be in a relationship with him. Miku notices that he is thinking deeply about her words and teasingly asks what kind of relationship he thought they were in. Yukiya angrily declares that their only relationship is that of childhood friends. Just then, two girls call out to Miku, and she quickly apologizes for leaving them. Yukiya lowers his gaze back to his desk, wondering if Miku only approached him to mess with him. He does not even notice the two girls approaching him until Miku introduces him as her childhood friend. The girls introduce themselves as Akane and Marika. Yukiya struggles to return their greeting because he does not talk to girls very often, which Miku casually points out. The girls are surprised to hear that since Yukiya looks like he would be popular. Akane mentions that his last name is uncommon, and Yukiya confirms that it refers to the color pattern of the Shinsengumi uniform. Yukiya suddenly pales because he realizes he probably sounded like a complete nerd, but he quickly tries to regain his confidence so he can converse with them. The girls immediately ask if he is into anime. He mentions that he recently got into Cosmo Connect, and Akane excitedly says that she has been watching a fantasy anime and as she begins describing in detail. Yukiya quickly recognizes the description and mentions that he likes the voice actor of the main protagonist. The moment he says that, Akane and Marika begin enthusiastically talking with him. Miku watches them with a baffled expression because she never expected Yukiya to be able to talk so comfortably with girls. Then Akane asks Yukiya if she can start calling him by his first name. Miku suddenly feels uneasy at the request, but she quickly feels reassured when Yukiya declines it. Even though her request was rejected, Akane continues smiling and the friendly atmosphere between them remains. Meanwhile, Miku finds herself quietly admiring how Yukiya smiles when talking to other people. After a while, Akane and Marika excuse themselves. Yukiya lets out a long sigh of relief, but then he notices a dark aura emitting from Miku. Yukiya is shocked by her expression, and Miku hurriedly tries to hide her face, unsure what kind of expression Yukiya just saw. Yukiya studies her carefully and suddenly thinks she might be jealous. Curious, he gently reaches out and touches her arm. Miku suddenly makes a strange sound and jumps away in surprise. The entire class turns to stare at them as the two of them look at each other in complete disbelief. Then Yukiya suddenly bursts out laughing. He slowly walks toward Miku while asking why she made such a funny sound, and Miku quickly blames him for it. She finally admits she was thinking of the strange expression on his face when talking to her friends. Yukiya immediately counters by saying that she had made an even weirder expression earlier. Despite his comment, he admits that talking to Miku is still much easier for him. He turns away from her and casually begins mentioning how other girls talk too much. Miku realizes that this is his awkward way of cheering her up. She walks toward him again and gently calls out to him. When he faces her, she softly calls his name once more. About a week after the entrance ceremony, Miku finds Yukiya sitting alone in the cafeteria. She plucks one earbud out of his ear, which immediately gets his attention, and Miku begins scolding him for being lonely. She suggests that he join her and her friends instead, but Yukiya turns away from her and casually mentions that she had been jealous the other day. Miku plops her lunch onto the table and takes a seat beside him, which surprises Yukiya. Miku tells him that she already informed her friends that she will have lunch with him. Though he refuses to admit it, he does feel grateful that she's spending lunch with him. Suddenly, a group of boys tries to get Miku's attention. Hayato, standing at the center of the group, introduces himself, claiming that he sits behind Yukiya in class. However, he gets Yukiya's name wrong. Hayato confidently takes the seat to Miku's left and immediately begins talking to her. Yukiya thinks that Hayato rarely gets the chance to talk to Miku due to her always being surrounded by other girls. Yukio wonders if Miku might be bothered by Hayato, but when he glances at her, she silently gives him an expression that reassures him that she is perfectly fine. She continues chatting with Hayato while Yukio simply enjoys sitting quietly beside her. Later that evening at home, Yukio prepares lunch for the next day. He tells Wakana that he is attempting to cut down on lunch expenses, but the truth is that he wants more opportunities to have lunch with Miku. Just then he notices that he has received a message from Miku inviting him to have lunch tomorrow. The next day, during lunchtime, Miku and Yukio sit together in a private area. Miku happily hands him a bento that she personally made for him. Yukio carefully opens the lid and is greeted by a lunch that looks appetizing. His heart flutters at the sight of the meal, but he quickly remembers their game. When he looks back at Miku, she's already giving him a smug expression. Miku teasingly declares that his heart will react since it's a special lunch just for him. Yukio feels frustrated since she only made lunch for winning their love game. Miku excitedly urges him to try the food, so he picks up a piece of the nemono. The moment he takes a bite, he is overwhelmed by how delicious it tastes. His expression immediately gives him away, and Miku quickly points it out. Yukio tries to sound smooth as he compliments the meal, suggesting that she must have thoughtfully prepared it with him in mind. Every word he says hits the mark, and Miku begins to blush. However, when he comments on the quail egg, his phrasing sounds odd, prompting Miku to scold him. Miku then notices that Yukio also brought his own lunch. She immediately suggests that she should try his food. Yukio suddenly becomes self-conscious because he knows it's bad. Miku's eyes widen when she lifts the lid, and she decides to start with the egg. To his surprise, Miku genuinely enjoys the food and says that it takes her back. Yukio wonders what she means, but then remembers that he made eggs that looked similar when they first met. He feels touched that she still remembers the omelette he made for her. Miku gently adds that whenever he feels lonely, they can always share lunch together. They eventually agree to have lunch together occasionally. Both of them attempt to hide how happy they are with this arrangement. Silently, Yukio makes a personal vow to improve his cooking skills. At home, Wakana ends up becoming his unofficial food critic. At school, Miku chats with her friends about afternoon tea. The girls eagerly want to spend the weekend with her, but she declines the invitation. The boys nearby overhear the conversation and suddenly imagine what afternoon tea with her is like. Yukio chooses not to tell them anything. During the weekend, he spends his time playing online games with Miku. You hear Miku's frustration, and Yukio cannot help but think how surprised people will be if they knew Miku games. Gaming is one of the few shared interests that has kept them connected over the years. When they entered middle school, they stopped spending time together as often because their hobbies began to differ. Yukio casually asks whether it is really okay for them to spend the weekend gaming. Miku insists that she would much rather play games because she wants to recharge during the weekend. She then cheekily adds that right now she's enjoying her time with Yukio. A new round begins, and Miku's voice suddenly rises in pitch, making it obvious how excited she is. Yukio cannot help but find her enthusiasm attractive, and he quietly realizes that these are some of the moments he truly cherishes with Miku. After Miku wins the match, they decide to take a short break. During the pause, Yukio hears the sound of Miku drinking something. She casually replies that she is drinking Suppoman. He quickly looks it up and discovers that the drink is designed mainly for children. Yukio finds it attractive that she likes a childish drink. He begins imagining how she looks while drinking it. Then a sudden thought crosses his mind, and he quickly advises her not to drink that in front of other people because he wants to be the only person who gets to see her looking that cute. Miku immediately chokes on her drink, and Yukio thinks she is nervous or blushing. To confirm his suspicion, he urges her to turn on her camera so he can check whether he has finally won the game. Miku hurriedly tries to argue that she just finished taking a bath, which unintentionally paints a very vivid image in Yukio's mind. He quickly insists that he is not interested in anything like that and that he only wants to confirm whether she's blushing. To pressure her further, he boldly declares that he will win if she refuses to turn on the camera. Panicking, Miku quickly grabs her phone and starts a video call with him. The moment Yukio sees her damp hair on the screen, he feels himself blush at how effortlessly beautiful she looks. He then notices that she is holding a familiar teddy bear from their childhood and that even the bedsheets in her room look the same as before. Miku, on the other hand, feels lucky to see Yukio during the weekend. It is rare for her to see him with messy hair and glasses, and she secretly finds him adorable. However, to hide her excitement, she decides to tease him by claiming that he looks flustered. She confidently insists that it must be because her hair looks nice, but Yukio casually responds that her appearance reminds him of a character from a horror game. Miku eventually suggests that they should continue playing their games with their cameras turned on from now on to make their love game more intense. Over the next few days, both of them end up stressing over which camera angles make them look their best. During their last day of middle school, Yukio did not feel anything particularly special about the occasion. Miku, on the other hand, was surrounded by friends. Yukio felt like Miku was probably the most popular girl in school, while he kept fading further into the background. One of their classmates had suggested that everyone write messages in each other's graduation albums, and Yukio decided it was a good time to leave. As he walked home, Miku suddenly came running after him, loudly calling out his name. Miku immediately scolded him. Annoyed that he did not seem to care that it was their very last day in middle school, she admitted that she wanted to spend her final walk home in her middle school uniform with Yukio. His heart skipped a beat, though he refused to admit it. Miku then grabbed Yukio's graduation album and quickly began writing something inside. Yukio flipped to the page she had written on and was surprised to see several notes scribbled across it. He felt slightly annoyed because most of the notes were making fun of him. Miku proudly praised herself for being such a good friend, while Yukio complained that he had been hoping to keep it clean. He was about to scold Miku for how pointless it had been to run after him, but then he realized that she was the type to do that. He found himself impressed that she had managed to write so much in such a short amount of time. He knew he was a nobody, so he was thankful that Miku still chose to spend time with him. Miku then cheerfully invited him to visit their usual cafe, since they might get a free slice of cake for graduating, and he agreed while silently vowing to change for her. Now, both of them have already entered high school. Miku casually chats with Yukio over the phone one evening. She asks him if he knows any good restaurants where she can take her friends. Yukio immediately suggests their usual spots, but Miku explains that she wants to go somewhere cuter this time. Yukio does not respond right away, so Miku suddenly says that she needs to go. Miku notices the change in his expression and quickly teases him about it before wishing him good night and ending the call. Yukio decides to take a short break, allowing his thoughts to drift to Miku. Wakana notices the new ice cream flavor he is eating, so he casually offers her half. After that, he picks up a shoujo manga and begins reading it, feeling like he needs to become more like the male lead to keep Miku by his side, since he fears losing her. The next day, he decides to share his concerns with Hanako. Masaru also asks about Miku's whereabouts. When Yukio explains that she had to leave early, Masaru dramatically loses the will to continue working and tells Hanako to close up shop, but Hanako refuses because she still wants to earn her working hours. Yukio then asks Hanako what a guy would have to do to make her happy. Without hesitation, she answers, money. She explains that money can buy many material things that can make her happy. Yukio finds her answer rather cold. Hanako explains that with only a little money, a guy can buy decent items, but if he has a lot of money, he has a greater chance of buying something truly impressive. Having the ability to choose high-quality brands can also show how much effort a person puts into obtaining them. To help Yukio understand her point, she asks him to think of something he once bought that required more effort than usual. Yukio recalls the time he carefully researched and saved money for his PC. Hanako explains that the same idea applies when buying a gift for someone important. She says that the person will appreciate it more if Yukio puts in extra effort to buy something thoughtful rather than settling for something ordinary. Hanako then jokingly teases Yukio that he fell for her because of her wise explanation. She adds that he should try again someday when he is rich. Yukio immediately declines, firmly stating that he would never spend that kind of effort on Hanako, though he still appreciates her advice. As he reflects on her explanation, he realizes that he already put in a lot of effort preparing for his high school debut, so spending on Miku should not be an issue. Later that evening at Miku's house, she is busy preparing dinner when her mother suddenly calls her, informing Miku that she will not be home for dinner. The moment she ends the call, she receives another incoming call from Yukio. Yukio asks whether Miku has already chosen a place to have lunch with her friends. Miku admits that she plans to check social media for recommendations. Yukio immediately calls her a normie who only cares about places that look grammable, so to teach her about a nice spot, he invites her to go with him on Sunday. Before Miku can fully process what just happened, he quickly hangs up. It takes her a moment to realize that he had basically invited her on a date. Meanwhile, Yukio is determined to prepare properly, so he decides to study shoujo manga. He realizes that the usual date spots are not very special since they have already visited most of those places together as a family. He is also aware that Miku is familiar with fancier locations since she often goes out with her friends. Still, he wants to make this date an unforgettable one for Miku. Back in her house, Miku feels that Yukio has been playing their love game more aggressively lately. Then she realizes that it has been quite a while since the two of them spent time together. She remembers how, when they were younger, they used to visit the mall's food court all the time. However, Yukio often avoided playing crane games with her. Even so, she secretly wishes that he would win a plushie for her someday. She notes that it is only Wednesday, which means she still has plenty of time to prepare. Even though Yukio was the one who initiated the date, she believes that she will gain the upper hand. Sunday finally arrives and Miku finds herself confused about why Yukio insisted on meeting at the station. Moments later, she finally spots Yukio waiting for her. She immediately blushes but quickly fixes her expression and greets him. Yukio struggles to greet her, but he does manage to say some lines from the manga. Miku feels insulted when Yukio turns smug and judges her clothes, since she spent days deciding what to wear. Yukiya tells her to follow him and then scuttles away, which confuses Miku. They end up in a dress shop where it appears Yukiya had prepared for her to try on some outfits. The sales lady then whisks Miku away to try on some clothes. As Yukiya waits, he wonders if it was the right move to have her change, since she dressed cutely today. He tells himself that he cannot stray from the plan and that he should trust in the knowledge of Hanako and a shoujo manga. Meanwhile, in the dressing room, Miku is still uneasy about having to change since she did put effort into her outfit. One of the ladies suggests talking things out with Yukiya, but the lady who had initially answered Yukiya's call for the reservation tells Miku that she thinks Yukiya just wanted to surprise her. She shares that Yukiya sounded incredibly nervous as he described what kind of dress he wanted to get for her. Holding the dress against herself, Miku decides to wear it after all. When Miku finally comes out of the dressing room in a floral white dress, Yukiya has trouble forming words. Miku is equally nervous but manages to act smug and tease Yukiya's choice of clothes for her. Instead of being honest, Yukiya tells her that the dress can make anyone look good, then tells her to follow him as he scurries away again. Yukiya brings her to a high-end restaurant for lunch. Miku begins to tremble since the place looks like something they cannot afford. Yukiya acts smug and tells her that if they want something grammable, both the place and the person must match in vibes, and right now, he tells her that she looks absolutely dazzling. Miku is too nervous to take the compliment since everyone around them is adults. Yukiya is aware of the situation but tells Miku to just keep her eyes on him. Seeing that there is no way out, Miku decides to start eating. She takes the moment to study Yukiya and notices that he looks out of place. She appreciates it though because she knows Yukiya had made the effort for her today. Yukiya notices her staring at him and tries to tease her about it, telling her that he still has more plans ahead, which instantly makes Miku worry. However, she gets pleasantly surprised when Yukiya brings her to an amusement park. She excitedly begins looking at the map, but when she consults Yukiya, she notices he is gone and begins to panic. He returns to her side with creeps and teasingly asks if she was anxious while he was away, though she gets mad because she thought he was lost. Then they take their first ride, which does not amuse Yukiya because they spent 120 minutes in line for something so quick. Miku suddenly announces that she is a little tired and asks if she can lean on his shoulder, but she gets embarrassed when he kneels and offers to carry her instead. To her, he is subjecting her to public humiliation with all of his weird acts. Later in the evening, Miku is a bit disappointed that Yukiya was acting out of character. Yukiya then gets her attention and asks if she is feeling anything, but Miku is only confused by the question, so Yukiya has to explain that she is supposed to think that he is handsome against the landscape, which at first irritates her, then makes her laugh over how silly he is being. Yukiya takes a moment to admire how she looks. To him, the background does highlight her features. Miku then asks if he has anything else up his sleeve, to which he admits he does and instructs her to close her eyes. Miku panics because she believes Yukiya is going to kiss her, but ultimately decides to give in. Yukiya then places a tiara over her head and tells her that for tonight, Miku is his very own princess. Instead of feeling special, Miku tears it off her head and tells him that he is being cringe, but Yukiya plops it back on her head and reassures her that no one can see them. Miku feels uneasy and finally tells Yukiya that he is being sketchy, and Yukiya agrees, admitting that he feels like it was too much. However, he feels like he succeeded because the date at least left an impact. He is certain that no other guy would give her a tiara in front of a castle. He tells her that he wants to be the only one to take her first. After announcing that, his vision begins to blur and he falls forward into Miku's arms. At first, Miku thinks he is hugging her, but since he is not responding, it becomes clear that he fainted. She ends up letting him use her lap as a pillow as Yukiya admits that he is feeling better. Miku thinks he is sleep-deprived from gaming, but he does not tell her that he was actually spending his evenings preparing every detail of their date. However, she's aware that Yukiya put in a lot of effort going out of his comfort zone today, so she tells him that he does not need to push himself. Yukiya surprises her by suddenly pulling her into a hug and announcing that he had to. His thoughts are filled with her and how he spent them admiring her from the sidelines. He asks if her heart fluttered, but he feels Miku pat his back, telling him that she enjoyed their date. Yukiya feels like he is lost today. Miku is too good at making him fall for her even more. He decides to leave for a bit to get a drink to cool off, which allows Miku's own mask to fall once he leaves. She was surprised when she was hugged, and his words earlier still confuse her. Yukiya's bag falls open, revealing all the manga he had been studying. She notices that the lines he used today are there, and there are notes attached to several pages. She realizes that Yukiya really studied up for today, which she finds both charming and idiotic. She knows he must have been embarrassed by his own actions, which makes her wonder why Yukiya is trying so hard to win their game. She then notices a kiss scene in the manga and wonders if Yukiya had been preparing for that. One day, Miku tells her departed grandmother about her date with Yukiya. She ends it with the story of how he gave her a tiara at the end. She's about to light the scented candles when she remembers the sudden hug he gave her. She begins to squirm, wondering if Yukio had actually meant to kiss her at that time. She tries to reason with herself that Yukio wouldn't kiss someone he doesn't like, even if it were just to win a game. By the time she finishes her story, she realizes she has lit too many incense sticks. She leaves the shrine room so she can make her way to school. However, she lingers a little longer because she still thinks that Yukio had meant to end the date with a kiss, which troubles her. At school, Yukio is a little concerned since he notices that Miku doesn't seem to be playing their love game today. He feels like it's the date's fault, so he begins to regret asking her out. He feels embarrassed since the manga ended with a kiss scene, but he could never pull something like that off. Worst of all, he had passed out, so he thinks he looked lame to Miku. He then remembers how Miku felt when he held her. He tries to visualize how small she was again, only for her to suddenly appear behind him. After recovering from his shock, Miku admits she has something to ask him. She wants to ask about the shoujo manga and its ending, and she also wants to know if maybe he likes her or if everything really was just part of the game. In the end, she doesn't ask any of that and instead brings up that she wants clarification about their love game. She wants to make sure she understands the rules correctly, since their recent change was anything goes. She wants to know how far that actually goes for both of them. Yukio grows suspicious. He wonders if this is some sort of test or if she somehow got overwhelmed during their date and is now hoping for limits. Slowly, he answers that anything means anything, so there shouldn't be a limit. Miku then asks if this means they are allowed to do things that people in love usually do. Yukio nervously agrees that they should be allowed to do those things. His answer disappoints Miku because it sounds like he's willing to do all of that even if he has no real feelings for her. Yukio struggles to respond, seeing that it is affecting Miku, so he tells her that the only reason he's okay doing those things is because it's with her. Miku reads into his words, thinking it sounds a lot like a confession, but then he ruins the moment by saying that he's only playing the game with her, and that's the whole point. He reminds her that the game isn't supposed to involve real feelings, since they can easily tell each other "I love you" even when they don't mean it. Miku feels irritated by Yukio's smug answer. She then remembers that Yukio is a wuss and probably wouldn't even be brave enough to do most of those things anyway. So she decides to go back to playing the game and act smug as well. She bluntly tells him that she doesn't really think about him that much anyway. To clarify, she asks again if it's really okay for them to do anything. When he confirms multiple times, Miku begins to think she could try something bold someday, while Yukio is also thinking about scenes from the manga. Miku decides to tease him, accusing him of thinking of something naughty, but Yukio tells her that she is probably the one with the wild imagination. To test how far she can go, Miku cheekily intertwines their hands together, mentioning that lovers usually hold hands, and this is well within their new rules. Yukio is overwhelmed, but he grabs her other hand in an attempt to show that he isn't affected at all. However, the two end up in an awkward struggle since neither of them wants to admit that they are embarrassed and refuses to let go. They hear some students approaching, and in fear of getting caught, Miku tries to pull back. This causes Yukio to unintentionally corner her against the wall due to the force and his refusal to let go. When he realizes their position, he quickly pulls away, which makes Miku chuckle at how shy he is being. The two end up arguing about who let go first and whether either of their hearts raced. Later that evening, Yukio dreams about holding Miku's hands. The dream starts out innocent, and it even seems like Miku shares his feelings, but then she begins teasing him. And he is reminded that Miku only acts sweet because of their game. Several copies of Miku then appear and mock him for being easy, causing Yukio to wake up in shock. He tries to calm his racing heart, realizing that their game is about to get even harder. At school, Natsuki invites Miku to study together for exams. Miku agrees, but Natsuki notices that she seems a little down. Miku admits that she hasn't been able to talk to Yukio much today. Natsuki is surprised and mentions that it's rare since the two of them always seem like they're in love, which Miku firmly denies. Natsuki tells Miku to be more honest and just talk to him if she wants to. To help her, she promises to create an opportunity for Miku to speak with Yukio again. Miku is about to decline her offer, but Natsuki is already calling Yukio over. When Yukio gives her his attention, Natsuki panics and doesn't know what to say, so she blurts out that the three of them should study together since Miku desperately wants to talk to him. Miku panics and pinches Natsuki's cheeks for saying that. She quickly corrects herself, saying they should study together because exams are coming up. After school, the three of them study in separate cubicles but right next to each other. Yukio has a hard time concentrating because being near Miku feels overwhelming, especially after dreaming about her the night before. Natsuki finishes reading a self-help book and decides to look for another one. Miku wonders if she will even study for the exams but decides not to scold her since her test scores are excellent. Yukio struggles to remain calm, and so does Miku, who is confused about why she feels so bothered around him today. She gathers herself, realizing that now is the perfect opportunity to finally win and put an end to their game, unaware that Yukio is thinking the exact same thing. They both decide to make a move, but neither of them actually does anything, even after an hour. They begin to wonder what changed. They had so many ideas before, but now that they confirm they can do anything, they both draw blanks on what they can actually do. Yukiya accidentally drops an eraser, which makes Miku panic when he suddenly moves to pick it up. Then an awkward silence fills the air between them once again. Yukiya is troubled by the sudden change in their dynamic. Normally, he would be enjoying his time with Miku or teasing her. He cannot remember a time when there was this much tension and silence between them. He feels that at this rate their game might just end with no real winner. When he looks at Miku, he notices that she is wearing such a glum expression. He realizes that Miku might be genuinely afraid of what he might do because they agreed that anything is on the table. In order to ease her, he gently calls her name. He says he knows that she is thinking about him, and that she doesn't have to worry because he isn't going to do anything that will cross the line. Miku is confused by what he means, so he rephrases it by saying that he won't do anything that she would hate or be against. Miku feels her chest grow warm since Yukiya is thinking about her. She goes back to teasing him, and just like that, things return to normal between the two of them. The next day, Miku tells Yukiya that she wants to go somewhere with him. He agrees when she asks and smirks to himself, understanding that this is another part of her game. He knows this will be an after-school date, and he feels prepared for it because he has been running simulations in his head beforehand. Meanwhile, Miku giggles to herself. She finally gets to take the lead again. Recently, she has felt like Yukiya has been the one dragging her around. Later, she plans to remind him how strong an opponent she is. Later, Miku brings him to Star Party, a cafe known as a place introverts should avoid. Yukiya already dreads entering, knowing that Miku chose this to make him suffer. Miku teases him about it because she knows Yukiya will probably freeze when making an order. Yukiya fakes confidence. He doesn't tell her that he had been studying coffee beans with her uncle in case they ever went to a cafe together. He also believes that after their last date, nothing can scare him anymore. The barista greets him and he instantly freezes. He checks the menu and realizes that his coffee knowledge is completely useless when it comes to ordering. He doesn't understand the drinks and everything on the menu is expensive, so he doesn't know what to choose. Miku notices his struggle and suggests a drink that he finds affordable. When Miku orders, she confidently asks for a large drink along with food, acting completely natural. They head to their table and Yukiya is shocked by the amount of food Miku bought for herself. Miku teases him for freezing up earlier, mentioning that he was probably nervous because he is sitting in a cafe with such a beautiful girl. Yukiya argues that she shouldn't make a big deal out of it since it is just a coffee shop, no different from her uncle's place. Miku begins eating her food and is pleased with both her drink and the chiffon cake. It reminds her of the time Yukiya tried Earl Grey cupcakes for the first time and thought there was pepper in them. She starts teasing him about it and continues chatting about various things. Yukiya notices that Miku seems happier than usual. Even if he doesn't care much about the topics, he really enjoys seeing her this happy. A little into her meal, Miku mentions that she's getting full and insists that Yukiya eat the rest of what she bought, even though he is hesitant since she ordered it for herself. Yukiya eventually gives in and is pleasantly surprised by how good the sandwich tastes. Miku beams, happy that she guessed his preferences correctly. So she continues eating her cake since the tension is gone. In truth, she wanted to treat him as a thank you for their previous date. However, she knew Yukiya would never accept something if she openly offered it as a gift. Meanwhile, Yukiya is aware of what Miku is trying to do. Yukiya then notices something written on her cup. The message compliments how cute her pigtails are, and he immediately feels like the barista is flirting with her, which bothers him. However, Miku explains that the baristas often write messages like that and points out that Yukiya has one as well. When they read his, it mentions that the barista thought they were a cute couple, which causes both of them to blush. Miku tries to hide her embarrassment and asks Yukiya what he thinks about being seen as a couple. He answers that he doesn't mind, and Miku admits that she actually likes the message. She wonders if handwritten notes have that kind of effect. She suddenly gets an idea, scribbles something down on a piece of stationery, and hands it to Yukiya. Yukiya struggles to control his expression while Miku asks if his heart skipped a beat. Yukiya insists that it didn't, saying that it is just a note. He then tries writing one for her as well, but when he hands it over, Miku is unimpressed because it is just a doodle. Yukiya explains that the doodle is her and her pigtails look good on her, as they are part of her essence, so that is why he drew them. Miku is secretly touched that he even made the effort, especially since she knows Yukiya cannot draw well, though she still scolds him for drawing on the back of a receipt. Yukiya then excuses himself to go to the restroom. While they are apart and out of each other's sight, both of them quietly tuck away the notes they received, each making a silent vow to cherish them. One day at Masaru's cafe, Miku and Yukiya are served the parfait Yukiya ordered, and Hanako deliberately gives them 2 spoons so they can share the dessert. Yukiya notices immediately and realizes that both Hanako and Masaru set the entire thing up. Miku doesn't seem to notice and happily snaps a photo of the parfait while Yukiya calms his racing heart so he can continue playing their love game. In a steady voice, he tells Miku that since there are 2 spoons, she might as well have some too. At first, Miku is overjoyed, but then she realizes that the situation feels like something a couple would do. Yukiya notices the change in her demeanor and teases her about suddenly getting shy. Not wanting to lose, Miku argues that she does this with Natsuki all the time. She stabs her spoon into the parfait and scoops up a generous amount, offering the first bite to Yukiya, who is surprised that she is fighting back. Yukiya is also completely smitten by her thoughtfulness and how adorable her blushing face is, though it frustrates him that Miku still hasn't admitted that he won this round. Because he stays silent, Miku teases him for freezing up, but he fights back by eating what she offered and calling her stupid. Miku's heart beats wildly, but she hides it by pretending to be angry over the insult. Without missing a beat, Yukiya takes the spoon from her hand, scoops up some parfait, and offers it to Miku, daring her to do the same. Miku panics because this is basically an indirect kiss. However, if she backs out now, it would be the same as admitting defeat. Still, she remembers their childhood together and how Yukiya had only ever seen her as a brat. She convinces herself that she cannot lose until Yukiya finally sees her as a woman. She pushes her hair away from her face so she can take a bite, but before she can, Yukiya suddenly eats the treat himself and teases her for the goofy look on her face. Miku gets annoyed by the action and screams. One morning, Miku prepares for school and makes herself breakfast. After finally taking a bite, she feels happy with how well it turned out. It was her grandmother's recipe. She also prepared a portion for her mother and packed it so she could take it to work. After finishing up, Miku continues getting ready for the day. She prepared a special hair milk formula to finally win Yukiya's heart and their love game. At Yukiya's house, he and Wakana stare at his attempt at cooking, only to see that the egg turned out burnt. As Wakana looks for a different meal, Yukiya is left wondering what went wrong. He decides to eat the burnt egg anyway. Suddenly, they hear the doorbell, and the siblings wonder why Miku arrived earlier than usual. When Yukiya answers the door, he is shocked to see Miku with her hair down. Miku explains that she hurt her finger during gym class and needs Yukiya's help tying her hair. Yukiya welcomes her inside, worried about her injury, but as he watches Miku walk into his house, he realizes that this is a trap and that she is trying to win their love game. He knows Miku chose the morning on purpose because he isn't mentally prepared to handle her yet. Miku offers Yukiya her brush and hair ties, and Yukiya feels blinded by how pretty she looks, though he tries his best to act indifferent in front of her. He convinces himself that tying her hair shouldn't be any different from tying Wakana's hair, which he had braided countless times growing up. As he begins parting her hair, he notices something different about its fragrance and texture. After finishing the first side, he asks if Miku used something on her hair today, and she confirms it, saying that her father sent her something special. Yukiya pauses, which Miku notices, and she immediately asks if his heart skipped a beat because of her hair. Yukiya gets annoyed and complains that he almost sneezed because of it instead. He continues with the other side and points out her lie about stubbing her finger. He notices that the bandages are wrapped too neatly, making it obvious that she isn't actually injured. Still, he compliments her on coming up with such an elaborate trick so early in the morning. He pats her on the head, sending jolts through Miku as he teases her about how much she used to love praise and head pats when they were younger, just like Wakana did. Then, to surprise her even further, he kisses the end of one of her pigtails, causing Miku to completely short-circuit. Just as Yukiya thinks he has won, Miku reacts in embarrassment but quickly tries to make it seem like she is disgusted by his actions instead, which hurts him a little. He begins reconsidering whether using manga for advice was really a good idea. To get back at him, Miku suddenly acts sweet again and touches his ears. She reminds him that when they were younger, she used to love rubbing his ears and repeats the action from their childhood memories. Yukiya immediately begins blushing as Miku comments on how soft his ears still are. Though Yukiya argues that Miku's ears are actually softer, Miku decides to be bolder and asks Yukiya to compare for himself. She tilts her neck slightly so he can see her ear more clearly. Slowly, Yukiya reaches toward it but hesitates for a moment before finally gathering the courage to touch it. Right then, Wakana walks in on them and reacts in shock. Miku and Yukiya pale and quickly pull apart, hurriedly explaining that they were just helping each other with ear massages, since it is apparently an important part of Miku's morning routine. Wakana wonders if they are pretending to be axolotls, while Yukiya desperately tries to convince Wakana that she should start doing ear massages too. She reminds them that it is almost 8, so Miku heads back home to grab her bag while Yukiya offers to help Wakana. As Miku walks home, she remembers how her grandmother used to pat her on the head and how Yukiya had just done the same thing earlier. She realizes that she likes the feeling of his hands and considers asking him to tie her hair again someday. When they finally head to school, Yukiya keeps thinking about how cute Miku looked in both her high school and middle school uniforms. During their walk home, Yukiya suddenly brings up her middle school uniform. Miku tells him that she plans on giving it away. Miku notices that Yukiya looks disappointed by the news and teases him about it. Yukiya denies being disappointed and claims that he was only wondering whether Miku had any good memories attached to the uniform. Miku pauses to think, and in her memories, Yukiya is always there too, standing beside her in his own middle school uniform. In the end, she decides to keep it. Later that evening, Miku considers trying to make a move on him while wearing her middle school uniform, but quickly decides that doing something like that would probably be too weird. At Yukio's house, he confronts Wakana about why she arrived home past her curfew. Wakana argues that one of her friends needed advice, so she stayed behind to help resolve the issue. Yukio has a hard time believing her because Wakana is all dressed up, so he asks if the friend was a girl or a guy. Wakana gets annoyed and argues that their mother already gave her the same lecture earlier. She understands why their mother would be worried, but she doesn't understand why Yukio has to concern himself with her business too. Yukio tries to calm her down, explaining that he was just worried about her. However, Wakana is already too angry and upset with him to listen to him any further and demands that he leave her room. When he exits, Yukio suddenly feels guilty for fighting with Wakana. Just then, his phone rings and he sees that Miku is calling. Miku tells him that she is ready to play Squid Tune with him, though she immediately notices that Yukio's voice lacks its usual energy. He explains that he got into an argument with Wakana, so Miku invites him to go to the convenience store with her instead. Yukio agrees, mentioning that he actually wants something sweet. As they walk to the store, Miku teases him about his situation with Wakana. Still, she gives him some insight. She mentions that while curfews are important, Yukio should also consider trusting Wakana a bit more. However, Yukio argues that he does trust her, but staying out late is dangerous. Miku tells him that it might be better for Wakana to come home smiling after having fun rather than coming home upset because Yukio kept getting on her case. Yukio then remembers all the times he worried whenever Miku came home late with a group of boys. He would text her, only for Miku to reply that she was at a party and even send pictures to prove that she was safely having fun with a large group. Yukio begins considering Miku's words as she suggests that he should focus on helping Wakana whenever she gets into trouble instead. However, Yukio finds that idea counterproductive because Wakana is already upset with how much he worries in advance. He thinks she might start believing it's okay to get into trouble as long as he is there to save her. Still, Miku says it would be cool if he got to be Wakana's hero, which only makes Yukio sigh in annoyance. Then he suddenly realizes something and reminds Miku to be more careful too, because she has a cute face. Miku tells him she is fine because her punches hurt and she is confident she can run away if needed. She even jogs a few steps ahead to prove her point, which only makes Yukio sigh again. As they continue walking, a few men begin eyeing Miku curiously. Yukio immediately steps in front of her, blocking their view, and the men eventually continue walking in the opposite direction. Yukio gives Miku a look since what just happened proved his point. Miku pouts, but then suddenly gets an idea. Before entering the convenience store, she sweetly tells Yukio that she would love it if he were always there to protect her. The comment only annoys Yukio more as he walks inside, choosing to ignore her. Miku realizes that she might have struck a nerve and approaches him again, saying that she can understand how Wakana feels. Unlike boys, girls are often lectured about how they should behave. She admits that it can be annoying, but she also understands that it comes from a place of care. Miku tells Yukio that Wakana probably understands that he is worried about her, especially since Yukio has always been such a caring older brother. She begins listing all the little things Yukio has done for Wakana over the years just to make sure she was comfortable. Yukio is shocked that Miku noticed all of that, though Miku admits that she guessed some of them. Regardless, Miku explains that because Yukio is her older brother, Wakana probably wanted him to support her first instead of immediately scolding her. Yukio remembers Wakana's words before she kicked him out of her room, though he still tells Miku that he isn't sure about that. Miku then notices Yukio picking out the snack he always splits with Wakana. She smiles warmly, knowing that Yukio is already planning to make up with her once he gets home. Yukio then points out that their favorite snack has a new flavor, and Miku is reminded once again that she loves all the small things he does to show he cares. On their walk home, Yukio begins complaining that he knows this fight will eventually happen again, until one day he loses Wakana to some future trashy boyfriend he can already picture in his head. Miku tells him not to overthink things and to simply trust Wakana. Yukio admits that he is worried because Wakana will eventually grow up and stop wanting to stay by his side. He knows he is boring, and he thinks Wakana might eventually gravitate towards someone more fun than him. Miku lightens the mood by telling him that he is actually an amazing older brother, then teases him for blushing at the compliment. As she walks slightly ahead of him, Yukio cannot help but wonder if Miku will someday stop wanting to stay by his side too. When he finally arrives home, he offers Wakana the other half of his popsicle as a peace offering. He apologizes for taking things too far, and Wakana apologizes as well for making him worry. Yukio then returns Wakana's shoujo manga and asks if he can borrow the rest of the series later. Wakana agrees, but when she takes the manga back, she discovers that Yukio left sticky notes all over the pages again. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to see what happens next.